Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Robert Timmons Show. Today, our guest is Sallyann Gray, who is a speaker and an author, and she is committed to coaching and training teachers by equipping them with the strategies and tools for creating an environment that fosters growth, innovation, transformation in students. She also writes curriculum for training departments for corporate companies and creates special education policies for organizations. Sallyann helps leaders shift the mindset of their teams so they can perform optimally and increase company revenue, and is an author of 2 books. Welcome to the show, Sallyann.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me. I want to point out that I have about 4 books on the market now. So,
Okay.
so maybe I need to ensure that I have my stuff adjusted. But yeah, 4 books on the market now.
And
Thank
where
you.
are you calling in from today, Sallyann?
Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica.
That's the capital of Jamaica, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
I haven't had a chance to get down there yet, but I definitely would love to. I'm an ocean boy, so anytime I can get on an island, I'll go.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, definitely you have a friend in Jamaica, so just let me know when you're coming by.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into it because you got a lot of amazing things that I've read on you, and I want to really step our listeners back to the beginning, the roots of who Sallyann is, and you talk about it. So what were the challenges with adversity that you had when you started at 3 months old?
Ah, okay, so thank you. Tim, I'm adopted. Actually, I'm a result of I'm a foster child, right? So I'm not even a result of a formal adoption in the sense of it being fully legal. But my mother, she had me, and obviously she had some challenges with keeping me because I still have not met her. And she determined one day that she had to give me away. So she left her home in Kingston, Jamaica, and started making her way by foot. She was heading to a radio station actually in Jamaica called RJR, which is Radio Television Jamaica. And that is, it was on the road that leads to this radio station where she came in contact with this gentleman, Selvern Sharp. He was a stranger to her. He was a young man minding his business, driving down the road. And he saw this young lady with a young baby in her hand. The rain had started to drizzle, and he thought to himself, let me stop and ask this lady if she needs help or a ride, being the kind young man that he is. And he stopped his car. She made the decision to get into the car. And from there, she started explaining her plight to this gentleman. And he said, listen, ma'am, you don't have to give away this baby. You don't have to drop the baby off at the radio station. My wife and I are unable to have children. We'll take the baby and care for her. And
Wow.
to that invitation, she handed me over to the man who I know now as my father. And he
Wow.
will share the story. He has shared the story of how after they exchanged some particulars, this was back in 1981, right? We didn't have phones, we didn't have a whole bunch of technological stuff that we have today. And he scribbled some information down on a piece of paper using his pen in the car. She went her way, and she had a baby bag for me. She left the baby bag with my father, so he placed me on the front seat of the passenger side and barricaded me in with the baby bag, and took his time driving me home to his wife to explain to her what had just taken place. And that is how my journey on planet Earth as we know it started. And when I learned about my story at age 11, because I wasn't formally adopted, my last name differs from my parents. So, the birth paper from the hospital, Kingston Public Hospital, my mother had left that in the baby bag with my my foster dad. And so they shared all the information that they could with me, because I started asking them, why was my last name different from theirs? And it was a little bit confusing for me as an 11, 12, 13-year-old, and as I evolved into my teenage years, and I started to have some great feelings of, self-doubt, low self-worth. Why did my mother give me away? And, I started acting out from there.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's the time, a lot of people would act out if they, especially your story is incredible. Like, that's incredible that, it went in such a positive manner,
Yes.
because that could have went another way.
It
right?
could have. So let me tell you what happened. When I started learning and uncovering of this, and my parents were telling me this, and oh my goodness, they were the best parents on the planet. They did the best they could with me. But for some reason, I could not interpret it for the miracle that it was at that time.
Right.
So you imagine my little 11, 12, 13-year-old mind. I'm living in this house with these people who I now recognize I'm not blood related to. And my parents also took in the nieces, twin nieces of my mother. So my mother's little sister had these twin baby girls when she was a teenager. And by this time, my mom was, an accomplished teacher. She's married. It's back in the day. So she takes in her little sister's kids to raise them so her sister can get on with her life. And so I'm raised in this house with my sisters, who are actually the nieces of my foster mother. And so it's a really confusing time, because I'm the only one who's not blood related. And so as I transitioned from 11, 12, 13, 14, how this manifested for me was I took it really negatively, and I started to act out. I started to act out in high school. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was considered the black sheep. My mother's friends would say to her, Marjorie, why don't you give back this kid? You need to find her mother and give her back. She's stressing you out. She's going to be the end of you. And my mother being deeply spiritual, I was raised as a Christian. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. And, my parents, with that strong faith, my mother said, listen, it was her mother's purpose to have her, but it's my purpose to raise her. And so
beautiful.
when I started hearing my parents speak like this, gradually, it started to shift my mindset. But I had two significant blows that I want to share that happened to me. So first, I found out that I was adopted. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD. And from being diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 15, I was then kicked out of high school at the age of 17, because I was not able to, really process everything that was happening with me. And, it was not a good time. And so for me, when I talk about shifting mindsets, transforming lives, and helping people to shift their mindset, it's not something that I've read in a book. This is something that I have lived. This is something that I know that if we don't, as a people, the human race, address the things that affect us in our childhood, how negatively they can creep back into our adult years, and it can wreak mayhem in our minds.
Absolutely.
If not addressed. Yeah.
No, those are great points for sure. And I had a rough upbringing as well. Maybe a different story, of course. Yours is just beautiful, how it all worked out. And I think when you probably, in a sense, gave gratitude to the story and what, how they were like angels that came into your life and took them from your mother's arms, took you from your mother's arms. I think that's brilliant. Like, those are beautiful people. And then they took on more.
They sure did.
Wow. That's incredible. So now, just to end with the story, did you meet more of your family because of that? You haven't met your mom, but you've met other members?
Yes, yes. Thank you for asking. So, again, throughout my teenage years, when my parents started taking me to psychological counseling, of course, I was, needing to speak with someone. The psychologist recommended that they try to find my biological parents to see if that would help, to close a wound. And in trying to find my mother, my parents actually stumbled on my biological father.
Oh, wow.
Who knew? So I have met my biological father, and meeting him was a great honor, great joy of my life. I was able to meet my only sister on my biological father's side, and we are in the process of building our relationship. So I'm grateful for that. And but I even talk about my encounter with my dad because after meeting him in my teenage years, there was a period of time where there was absolutely no communication between him and I. And I started asking my parents, because they introduced me to him, and I call him Uncle Patrick because I already have a father. So I'm not calling him daddy. Okay. And then it's, again, a confusing time with, who's who, what's what. And then in that time when he had kind of gone absent, I would learn later on that he was convicted of a crime, and then he was in the general penitentiary here in Jamaica for about 10 years.
Oh,
And,
wow.
since he has been out of jail, we have reconnected and we're gradually building our relationship. I wouldn't say, it's like, we're really close, but I know who he is. I know where to find him, and he knows where to find me, and we're building.
And I'm sure in kind of the direction, the mindset you are now,
Yeah.
it's not affecting you internally for
Mhm.
what, being in a penitentiary can be considered very negative.
Yes.
The stuff that goes on there can really internally hurt someone for
Right.
long periods of time. So I think that, because of who you are and what we're going to find out more about you is you're a lot more stronger now,
Yeah.
a lot more confident,
Mhm.
very, you're able to speak in ways that could help someone like your biological father as well.
Mhm.
Now,
Absolutely.
if we move on, you do a lot with the school system. So you talked about your, you being diagnosed with ADHD and you getting in a lot of trouble at school and that. But now you're working a lot with the school systems and even was a recipient of the Jamaica Association of the Deaf Shield for the best performance in deaf education given by, now hopefully I say this right, it's either Mico or Mico University
Michael.
College. Mico. So my
Yes.
first thought was right. Can you tell our listeners, the impact that you are creating within the school systems now, either with the students and the teachers?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So, yes, when I was graduating, so listen, I got kicked out of high school. And the same high school that kicked me out, in fact, the same principal that asked me to leave because of my improper conduct would 4 years later employ me as a special education teacher
Wow.
upon my graduation from college. And I just feel so blessed and so honored to be a part of, the journey now of teenagers. So I've worked a lot in the school system in Jamaica and both in the United States. And what I do there, I meet students where they are. I'm a trained special educator, and I know what it means to feel rejected. I know what it means to be labeled. And so I am now able to bring that personal experience to the education system and, meet my students where they are. But I also have the great privilege of not just knowing the education system from this perspective of the misunderstood student, I know it from the underfunded teacher. And then when I went on into further administrative roles, I worked with the Ministry of Education in Jamaica as a pathway coach for teachers in the regular education setting coaching them and teaching them how to help our special needs students who fell through the cracks but were still in the regular education setting, right? And so with that coaching, I was able to provide training to teachers locally. I was able to provide training to principals that would help to open up their mindset to, the students that they're interfacing with, and understanding that all the kids are not just bad. It's not just bad. When you have a child before you who is presenting in a particular way, it's layers deep, and we have to dig and go all the way back to see, their history. We have to evaluate their present levels of performance. We have to look at what their, what we want them to be able to achieve, and look at the discrepancy in between. And that will set the tone for how we go about creating what is known in special ed as individualized education plans that can meet the unique needs of our students, so that, listen, we can provide them with what they need. Because ultimately, listen, I tell the teachers when I'm trying to shift their mindset, I said, listen, is Jamaica in a state where you feel comfortable retiring tomorrow with the current generation? The kids we teach now are the ones who will take care of us in a few years. And so we better be doing what we need to do in this moment to properly equip our students, our parents, so that they can go forward and, for the parents, nourish the children in our non-contact hours with them as teachers, because we're not responsible for what happens with them when they're not before us, but we can certainly help to influence and impact the parents. And definitely we can shift our mindset around what is it that we need to do when we have them, when these children are entrusted to our care, to ensure that they come out to the best possible product,
Right.
we can reap the fruits of our labor later when we get older, right? So
That's definitely a different mindset, how you're talking with the students to talking with the teachers, but it's such a way to combine them in such a manner that benefits them both.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I was someone who, my neighborhood, our goal was to quit school at 16. And I succeeded on that. I quit school at 16 because it was legal.
Wow.
And that's kind of the environment I was around. That was what we knew. There was no one else helping us, guiding us. Even the school system wasn't guiding us properly. The counselors weren't in that kind of area. Like, you are coming out of that area and you're coming in saying, hey, I've been there. I know these kids. I know that they have a lot more, like you say, layers underneath them. And that's true. Like, if I think about myself, I had a lot of layers. I had a single mom raising me who worked 4 jobs. So she wasn't around a lot. There was 3 kids. So I was the middle child. I felt like the black sheep being the middle child. Right.
Yes.
And then we had the trouble of the neighborhood. We had fatherless, homes. And, if there was a father, he was in and out of jail. So I absolutely understand that. And I didn't feel the school system helped and prepared me much. But I did get my grade 12 and I moved on. I went to college. And that was a lot, but that pulled me out of that cloud. That was a lot of challenges. I think this is great that you've taken your experience and come back to the school system. Absolutely. And you went right up into the Ministry of Education.
Yes, absolutely.
So how'd you get up that high? How'd you get up that far?
Okay, well, in terms of my journey as an educator, so after being kicked out of high school, I worked for a year, and then my mother actually was a lecturer at the Mico Teachers College for years. My parents are both educators, and so I had told my mom, I said, listen, I think I want to become a teacher. I want to go back. During that year of working, I went through a little period of self-actualization, I'd call it. I was reading a lot of books, and I decided I want to go back. So I went, I did my diploma in special education, and then I went back to my alma mater and I taught for 1 year. But then after that, you know, in Jamaica, you at that time you had to do like the diploma in teaching. Then you would have to go back to the main college and get your bachelor's. So I went back. I stopped working, and then I went back to school and I did my bachelor's in special ed for 2 years. And then after that, I went back into another school. I taught for another year, and an opportunity opened for me to be a special ed teacher in the United States. And
Oh, wow.
listen, I went straight to North Carolina as a single woman, no kids. I wasn't married at the time. And I learned a lot in those 3 years when I was in North Carolina. And while I was teaching special ed there, I did my master's program at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. And so that was now a program in educational leadership, world-class university, one of the biggest research universities in Virginia. And that experience, the teaching coupled with doing my master's, opened up my mind to a new world, and it taught me new strategies. And it's really, you know, just kind of helped to propel the education that I got in Jamaica locally, which was awesome as well. And so from there, I started getting involved in different organizations, special ed. I did lots of training in, you know, positive response to students. And I was exposed to a lot, like how do you deal with students with emotional disabilities, autism? And so now I was gathering this wealth of knowledge, and I decided, let me come back to Jamaica. So I come back to Jamaica, and the first job that I get after, you know, teaching in the US and doing my master's was at Heart Trust NTA, and that is the National Training Agency of Jamaica, one of the government subsidiaries that is charged with teaching our young people after they leave high school and equipping them with a skill or a trade, which was great for me now. So I was stationed at this school in downtown Kingston, Jamaica, with, guess what they called a program for underprivileged youth. And there, my work just went to a whole different level, because I started teaching with some passionate special educators who understood what we called street children back in the day, and how to help these boys especially shift their mindset, transform their life, taught them life skills. It was not so much about just theory, but how are we going to equip you for life? And that reignited in me a passion for special ed. I already had it, but that took things to a whole different level. And then my mentor at the time, who was also my boss, recommended me for a job where I would be still working with the National Training Agency, but now I was placed on a committee of curriculum designers. So I was now creating curriculum for the government of Jamaica, which that was what took my whole education career to a whole new level. When I was given the opportunity to now create content and sit at the table with policymakers that would, you know, these policies and the content that I was a part of creating would now have a transformative shift in how our youth were educated from a skills-based perspective. And so that was really, you know, the thing that got me to thinking different as an educator, and opening up my mind and showing me, teaching me. I learned from a lot of my colleagues and scholars that I interfaced with. I met a lot of industry experts for the purpose of writing curriculum. And so from there, I moved on. You know, my last professional role was at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, where I was head of school and programs director for their sales school, which is the first sales school in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. So, you know, and from that, I am now an educational consultant in my own right, where I am helping to write programs for foundations, for colleges, universities, corporate entities. But I'm just so passionate about helping educators and professionals to shift their mindset, because I understand what that can do if we're operating from a space of transformation, then we can completely, totally impact our youth, because they can see the journey through us and then they can adapt, you know. And so that's really, you know, in short, what my journey has been to this point.
That is impressive. I have to say, I'm sure the listeners are like, wow, like I am very impressed on how you took yourself and you even went to another country, you know, and you kept learning. I think that's one key thing here is you kept learning and then you brought it back and you helped lift up your country.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
literally, you lifted up your country and exposed them to some great new tactics, strategies, you know, and now you're writing books in a sense, you know, that's beautiful. And then you're right, you know, changing the mindset, the perception of how you see things will
Sure,
change your actions and your directions, right? You know,
sure.
because especially in the teachers and when they look at someone or anybody looking at the children, they think they're just spoiled little brats,
Oh.
right? You know, that's kind of,
And
I think
some
a
of
lot of
them
people
might
think.
be. Some of them might be.
They might be, yes, they might be.
Mhm.
But when you change your perception, you say, okay, let's look a little deeper into this.
Sure.
What is
Absolutely.
going on in their home? What's going on? You know, are they eating well? Like, what's their nutrition like? That's huge too, right? Are they getting enough sleep? You know,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of layers like you were talking about. But
Absolutely.
so I think we've kind of got into how you help leaders shift their mindset. That's kind of what we were just talking about, right? How you're
Sure.
shifting the
Sure.
mindsets of the leaders and helping them. So let's go into, you're a speaker as
Yes.
well, and I can definitely tell the way you're pronouncing everything and you're doing everything so amazing, and you
Thank
help
you.
people speak now as well. So that's
Sure.
another branch on your knowledge base and how you're really providing value to so many people. Now
Sure.
you have one talk, and if you can briefly explain it, you got renew your mind, renew your life. What what
Yeah.
what is it that you bring into that talk?
Well, you know what? Renew your mind, renew your life. You know, if we think back to some of the things that have conditioned us, we know that culture is very important in culturing our mindset. The environment that we're raised in helps us to bring into focus how we think and how we process about certain situations, and the preconceived notions that we bring to situations, the things that we think about people within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. All of that comes from our culture, right? And so our culture helps to form our mindset. But if we can be exposed to renewing, reshaping, reconstructing our thoughts, to having a more global perception, to looking very deeply and taking into account not so much our own cultures, but being open to factoring other people's cultures and
Hmm.
how they perceive the world, then that opens us up to free ourselves, to renew ourselves, to think differently, to move differently. Because the thing is, when you start to think differently, when you expose yourself to literature and content from different off different continents, and you expose yourself to different theories and science knowledge and education based, and you start to really peel back the layers and unculture yourself from how you were raised, you give yourself an opportunity to renew your mind, to renew yourself. And in doing that, you can renew your actions, you can renew your perspective, you think differently, and now you can do differently. And so, what I've found is that our shifting of thinking can actually increase productivity. It can increase our relationships in the workplace, personally. It can move mountains. And so I recognize that, listen, this is a process that I've been through, and it helped me. And sure enough, if I'm a human being and I went through certain things, I can sure find a couple of other human beings of the 7.5 billion on the planet who have experienced something similar to me, who want to be freed from self-limiting thoughts and beliefs so that they can now think differently and do differently. For example, A personal self-limiting belief that may arise out of our culture and how we were raised is, we're broke. We don't have it. There's no money for that. Because if you're raised in an environment where your parents, are constantly struggling for money, and we're constantly fighting and scrimmaging, and we only have one shoes here and one shirt there, subconsciously, even as an adult, when you have started to work, you have subconsciously taken on the mindset of lack. And so if you're not careful as an adult, you start to do things that will not only manifest this mindset, but it will start to show in your life based on the things that you're doing. And so what you can do now as an adult, when you recognize, but I'm really limiting myself, you can start to reculture your brain and your thoughts to move towards abundance. Now, when you move towards abundance, it will help your personal life. But here's one way how it will help your professional life. You will now start to recognize that opportunities are in this office for me and everybody else. There's enough at the table. I don't have to fight my colleague out of the next promotion, because there's something here for me. And if it's not here in this office, it can be in another place. And I am free to look for another job because there's an abundance of everything here, right? And so I don't have to hold information at my desk just for me, Sally Gray. I can freely share it, and we can work together as colleagues to solve a problem, right? Because if you have 10 minds working together, how many great ideas will you get? Maybe 10. But if you're working together by yourself, how many great ideas will you get? Maybe 1. And so this abundance mindset that can be, helped to be fostered, can help in many ways, not only personally, but professionally. And so what I do when I speak to CEOs and business owners, I'm saying, listen, your bottom line is increased in your financial and your profits, okay? And what you do, millions of dollars you spend in your training budget. But if the mindset of your people are not ready to receive this training, you may very well be wasting that money. And no entrepreneur wants to hear that they're wasting funds. So let me come in and help to shift the mindset of your people so that the slate is clean and it is ready to receive all of this training. Wow. Which improvement in training and improvement of skill will now enhance and increase productivity. And that's what we're going for. So yes, that's what I focus on when I go into corporate companies.
Another impressive answer. My goodness, you are just amazing. You talk about lack and abundance. I find that to be the big line drawn for anything and everything in someone's mind. We talk about the 1% to the 99%, and a lot of the 99%, which is, majority of the population, is in the lack mindset, or has a majority of their day in the lack mindset, because I think everybody's a bit of both. It just depends on what situation they're in and where they're at in life.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the lack, I really think people need to understand that's where you're talking about the mind shift of going from understanding that you may be in this job, but this job isn't everything. And there's not a lot of security in those, most of the time too. And people need to understand
Corona has shown us that, if
Absolutely.
nothing else.
Absolutely. Like a lot, like what is there, 40% or maybe 30% now, but have lost their jobs here in the United States alone.
Absolutely.
But it's affected the whole world. And yeah, you're right. Everything's kind of shifting. We're getting a massive shift. We're doing a lot more things online. And I hope that people take this as a good thing. I know there's a lot more impact happening. A lot more depression could be happening, a lot more, negative, and people feeling that lack in a different way. But it's also, if you think about it, it's a chance to renew, just like your talk. It's a chance to renew your life, your culture, your decisions, your choices, the direction you want to go. You can start creating that new life that you want.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, that's great. I really think that's amazing. Now, let's get into, I want to talk about your books. I thought,
Yeah.
I seen two anyways, and the two that I seen were the renewal, revive everything necessary, empower within, and
Yes.
planted in purpose, what's feeding
Yes.
your roots. And
Absolutely.
you can also mention your other two books, and if you want to briefly describe them so people know, and then where can they get them as well?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So my first book, The Renewal, Revive Everything, Empower Within, came out of a spiritual renewal. As I was sharing earlier, I was raised Christian, but I had, kind of went off on a different path. And, when I got back to Jesus, it renewed me. It renewed my mind when I went to his word, and the Bible was telling me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, and I'm the head and I'm not the tail. And I'm starting to research all these things. And I'm like, yes, girl, I am empowered. I am ready to go. So the renewal really speaks to, a heightened, transformation of the mind, where I was really able to take hold of these things and take action on them. So throughout the book, I speak about the steps that I took to being renewed. I also have the Renewal Pyramid in there, which kind of looks similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It kind of starts at the bottom and goes all the way up. And I talk about the steps that I took to really renew my life, shift my mindset so I could be transformed. And it goes all the way through from there to finding purpose. And listen, chapter my seventh chapter, the last chapter, talks about being paid for purpose. Because listen, one of my whole beliefs is that we should create impact while earning an income. There is no reason why we would not be able to monetize our gifts and our talents, right? And so I believe that when we are operating in the space of I am taking action on the things that I was born and created to do and staying true to my mission, then money will come automatically. And I think that's honestly the best place to operate from, when you're doing what you love and you're earning. I mean, isn't that just bliss?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so that's what the renewal deals with. All my books can be found on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. I've also done Barnes and Noble physical book tours in the US. I've signed books in a number of states in their stores. So the second book, Planted in Purpose, What's Feeding Your Roots. So I kind of, at a certain point in my life, got fascinated with the job of a farmer. And I started to recognize the difference between sowing and reaping, and difference between seed time and harvest time. And listen, I recognize that our life has seasons, right? So, sure enough, as it's good, it does get bad. So we have highs and we have lows. And I think that we should embrace the valley as much as we embrace the mountaintop, because it's in the valley that we learn the things that can empower us to go right back to the mountaintop, right? And so I learned that life is cyclical. And I learned that whatsoever a man reap, whatsoever a man sow, that is what he will reap. And so it is incumbent on us as human beings to ensure that we're first in the right soil, the people that we're hanging with, the things that we're exposing our eyes to, our ears to. What are you listening to? Like, what are you doing, right? And so all of those things, in addition to what we take action on. So I talk a lot about, yes, learning and filling up your tank, but a lot of people are stuck in planning mode, right? And there's no use in even listening to this podcast any further if you don't plan on taking action, because Sally is all about taking action. Listen, guys. So we don't want to just know, we want to do, right? So what I've found in my life as a speaker is that there are lots of people who will go to these seminars and they'll be like, oh, I heard what that speaker said already. I read it in that book and I know this and I know that. But the question I always ask is, how better off is your life for having acquired that information? Because if you now know differently and you're not doing differently, honey, we need to talk. So, and so Planted in Purpose, What's Feeding Your Roots, talks about seed time and harvest time and the seasons in life, and how, for example, to make this current, this season of Corona, you may have lost your job, You know, you may be going through hardship. The whole world is experiencing, I mean, really and truly, when you think about it, we are on the brink of a global recession. But listen, there's some businesses that are not in recession. Zoom that we're using to record this right now is definitely not in recession. I don't know their numbers, but I will tell you they're not experiencing any form of recession. And so what we have available to us is a unique time, a unique opportunity to say, listen, oh my goodness, I lost my job, but what is my purpose? Oh my goodness, I lost my job, but was I even happy? Oh my goodness, I can know I have some time on my hands. I may not be able to pay my rent right now, but I tell you what, if I use this time wisely, I may be able to cook up a plan. I may be able to cook up a business idea that aligns perfectly with my purpose and my mission on the planet that can help to take me to the next level. And even though we're in a recession, listen, Planted in Purpose says there are things that you can do right now so that you can benefit from your own life. But the ball is in your court. And, you know, the things that you sow now is what you will reap later. So listen, that book is for the person who is not clear about their purpose, who is a little bit uncertain about what's happening in their life, who wants to be, circle up right and tight and be in the right soil so that they can take their life to the next level. Amazon and
Barnes and Noble.
and BarnesandNoble.com.
That's a great book. I just want to touch on one.
Sure.
You talk about celebrating the peaks.
Yes.
And then the problem is people don't realize it's not, you got to celebrate the lows.
Yes.
You know, because it's how you handle the lows. It's not how you handle the highs. It's how you handle the lows. And you start raising those lows up higher and higher to increase your standards.
Yeah.
Because we'll fight for to keep those standards. And if they're low standards, well, you're going to keep yourself low.
Yeah.
Right? No, I think, that book sounds amazing, and using the analogy of the seasons to the seeds. And planting seeds doesn't necessarily mean they're positive or negative. It's what you put out. Like if they're negative, you're planting negative seeds. You're going to grow negative things.
Absolutely.
You could direct yourself somewhere that you're like, how did I get here?
Yes, absolutely.
And like you said, Sallyann, it's what you're putting in your mind. What are you reading? Who are you around? They say you're just like the crowd that you hang out with.
Absolutely.
And
Top
it's
5
so much
people
truth
you hang
in that.
out with.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. So you have 2 more books. What are the titles of those?
Okay, so my third book is entitled Wayward Teen to Transformed Queen, and that one is recent. Strategies to help your teenager succeed. Now, this is an 8-step guide for parents of teenagers specifically. So one of the things that I got out of speaking to parents was, listen, your story sounds real horrible in the beginning, but now I'm looking at you on the stage and you're looking like you have it mighty together. What has accounted for that, Sallyann? And so I started having some parents reach out to me and say, listen, the story that you shared sounds a lot like what's happening with my teenage kid right now, but what can I do to help them to turn out to somebody like you? Seriously. They asked, and I said, listen, not to fair, I have something for you too. And so, I was able to pull this book together as a resource for parents, and the feedback that I've been getting is absolutely phenomenal.
Awesome.
Actually, it has even been endorsed by the Ministry of Education locally here in Jamaica, and they have said, listen, every guidance counselor in Jamaica should have this in high schools. And I am just really talking in that about my story and the strategies that my parents used with me, and some mindset tips that helped me to really shift the trajectory of my life so that I could go from wayward to a queen, and that's a wayward teenager to a queen, where I'm confident, where I know who I am and I know what I want. And so I want to help to gift parents with that knowledge so that they can be exposed and use the tools. And I use a lot of my experience as a trained educator, and me having interacted with children who have been labeled with EMD, emotional disabilities, and saying that they're out of control. Well, listen, there's a way to get these kids under control. Everybody can become subject to an authority. And so I talk about that. So that book is for parents. And
Mm.
then my fourth book is comes under the brand of my business. And I have a business called Global Speakers, which it's a premier training agency here in Jamaica where I do public speaking training, communication consultations for corporations. That book is entitled Become a Professional Speaker because I want to help people build their speaking business from the ground up. You don't know anybody, you don't have any big links. You're seeing all these speaker coaching programs. I see Les Brown behind you. Les Brown, I did a training with Les Brown in Deerfield Beach, Florida, but
Oh,
it was
wow.
not cheap. And I know that the average person may not be able to afford what would be considered world-class training and coaching programs for public speaking, right? And so I wanted to bring that to Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the wider world for the new and emerging speaker who wants to, understand a little bit about who their audience is. Who do I speak to? What do I speak to them about? And how can I position myself to create global impact? So that book is for the new and emerging speaker. But all my books deal with shifting mindsets so you can transform your own life. That's it. So yeah, and my husband and I now are actually working on a book called Marriage is a Mindset because we now have couples coming to us. They're like, listen, you guys are young.
I love it.
We're stressed out. My husband and I are about to be married for 9 years in October, and
Oh,
it's
congrats.
easy road. Thank you. And so I want to encourage and shift the mindset of some newly married, soon to be married, or even established married people. So y'all can look out for that on my social media platforms.
That my wife and I are going to be married 9 years in October as well. October 30th was our wedding anniversary. So congratulations on that. 9 years. I definitely know it's a big journey in itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Those books sound amazing. And, for our listeners, be sure to go check those out. Look for Sallyann Gray on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Sure.
So what 3 mindset tips could you give our listeners today that they could implement? Like we talk about, you want to pull something from here. You want to put some action to it. You want to test it. I always tell everybody, test it. Implement something that you learn in a book. Test it and see if it works for you. Does it work? And if not, discard it and move on and check something else because there's patterns.
Yes.
People can utilize other people's experience into their own life and make a change. Absolutely. So I was just really wondering what you had, what 3 amazing tips could you bring, even though you brought a lot of great value already?
Absolutely. So thank you so much again for that. So in my first book, The Renewal, I told you guys that I had the Renewal Pyramid in there. And the first thing on the Renewal Pyramid I have is influence. Now, influence is something that I say that if we do not shift or influence, if we don't circle up right and tight, we can find that we will be stuck in a cycle, right? Because our culture influences our mindset, and sometimes our physical location, being stuck around certain people, impacts us, the things that we read, the things that we're exposing ourselves to. So I would say ensure that you're checking your influencers. What is influencing you and who is influencing you? And if the people that you're spending the most time with, the top 5 people, they're not moving in a direction that you see yourself in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, may I invite you to reevaluate. And it doesn't mean that you have to cut them off, but what it does mean is that you have to start looking in your life now for mentors, people. If you want to go into business, you need to find somebody who has been successful in business and understand that the mentor that you've selected to help you get out of a financial rut may not be the same mentor that will help you with marriage. You have different mentors for different things. And so you want to look for people who are strong. I'm sure you would not have spoken to someone about starting a podcast who does not have a successful podcast? You know, it kind of makes sense. So
Makes
let
sense.
us find the experts, guys. Let's circle up right and tight. And I am actually stealing something from one of my girlfriends now. My friend Kadisha always says, she says, Sal, curate your crowd carefully. And that is the first tip I would give you. Curate your crowd carefully and ensure that you have influencers and advisors and mentors in your life who are actually operating in a space that you would like to be operating in the next 5 years.
Nice.
The second thing that I would say is, guys, listen, we have too many people talking about, oh, I want to do this. I wish I could do that. Maybe I'll do this. Listen, guys, that's all wishing. That's all wishful thinking. We need to listen, develop the courage to define what is it that we want, which is the hard part, by the way, which is why you have mentors. I can't tell you what you want in a 1 hour podcast interview, right? I don't know you, but what I do know, as Les Brown says, is that you have greatness in you. And so I want you to reach deep for that greatness and define some goals for your life. 3 simple goals. Come up with 3 things. You would never get on a bus that doesn't have a number or a destination. And the reason why they put numbers and destination on buses and trains is so that you can know that you're getting on the right one. Yeah? So my thing is, how do you know that your life is going in the right direction if you have not narrowed down some goals for yourself? You may not be in the right job. You may not be in the right relationships. And the only way for you to figure that out is if you narrow down goals. So I want to challenge you to narrow down 3 goals and make them SMART. Google SMART goals. You want your goals, guys, to be smart. You want them to be attainable. You want them to be measurable. So when I started my mindset shifting journey, I wrote that I will read 12 books. In January of that year, I wrote that I will read 12 motivational or inspirational books on certain topics by December 2017. That is something that is attainable. It's measurable. Well, I can say, well, Sally, did you read the book for January? You know what I'm saying? I've put it's time bound. I've put some timelines on that. So I know that in order for me to read that book for January, I probably would need to purchase it maybe by the first week in January. So I have 3 weeks to read it. And so you can start now to kind of feel like you're attached to something that's bigger than you. So you set some goals. And guys, so that's point number 2. Point number 3, I cannot exaggerate the importance of vision boarding. I believe in writing your vision and making it plain. I believe in it. Don't have to be some great sip and those new art parties. It don't have to be no paint and sip party. You don't have to wait on none of that. Listen, you can pour yourself a glass of wine at home and say, listen, I need to see something happen in my life. If it's a new car, if it's a new job, if it's a new degree, if it's, getting a family, whatever it is that your heart desire, if it's walking in purpose, if it's creating global impact, whatever it is for you, you need to write it down. And after you write it down, you need to create a visual for that. So in my room, guys, right in front of me, I have my dream home, right? I have a picture of myself and my kids with my husband doing devotions because that's important to me. What else had I put on my vision board in January? I had placed the family exercising. I just found a Black family on Google in pictures. They were exercising together. I cut that out. I put the debt-free life with a woman jumping in the air because I was done with debt. I put a whole bunch of stuff that was in alignment with what I wanted to celebrate in December 2020. And so I put them all on my vision board. And guess what, guys? Every morning when I lay in my bed like this at night and I wake up, my vision board is right in front of me across the way on that wall. And you know what that does? There's a study that came out of Harvard that actually says that our brain waves start to move towards the things that we see frequently. And there's lots of research that says the thing that we focus our energy on and our mind and our thoughts on an hour before we go to bed and the first hour after we wake up. There is a notion that our subconscious mind will start pulling us in that direction. And by the way, beyond my book, because I have no problem selling other people, The Power of the Subconscious Mind is a great book that everybody should read. I don't even remember the author right now. Is it James Allen? I don't
I
remember.
haven't read that one. I'll have to look at that one too.
The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And it talks about that nothing really becomes reality for your brain until it seeps into the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Visioning helps that. And you know what starts to happen? Your brain subconsciously starts to pull you into direction and give you ideas of how you can get out of debt, how you can get buy this new house that you have. Guys, let me tell you something. In January, I could not make it up a flight of stairs without going out of breath. Let a sister tell you. And I am trying to tell you now, I'm exercising every morning. My daughter and my son come in the room. My husband, he's lifting his weights. He thinks he's Hulk Hogan. All coming out of what I had envisioned for myself and my family. It works. It works. It works. It's nothing new. It's nothing that is special to Sallyann Gray. It's no new phenomena. If you Google it, you'll see that this has existed for centuries. But what I need you to do is to take action on it. Try it, test it, and see if it works.
Absolutely.
And even let you know.
I'm an artist, so I'm all about visuals. I'm all about seeing the end in mind, because I think that's what a vision board is. You're putting out something that you want to, create the end. And like you said, the mind starts creating the pathways there. And when someone actually does implement this and take action on it, like you have with your exercising, and you start seeing your family, it's true. You start seeing, I wrote down, it was a couple of years ago, we were living in Florida and we were moving over to California. At that moment, we weren't. I just put on my vision board, moving December 18th, 2000, and I forget what it was, 16, I think. And we moved February of 2017. So it was only a couple months later. It was like, this is crazy. Like, just because I had it there and it happened, it may not happen exact date that you put, but you've given your mind a definite decision.
Yes.
And that is allowing it to now work on that. It's very empowering. It's very simple to do. Grab some pictures, grab some stuff. I just did one myself with a red Tesla that I really want. I went in, it was the exact one I've been manifesting in their showroom. And now I got to plan a test drive on it. So
yes. Get yourself in that baby and take a picture. I'm telling you.
I love it. I love your 3 tips. The influencing one is huge too, because it's true. Well, what are you influencing your mind with? There's so much in that. So where can people find you on social media?
All right, great. So I am on Instagram as Sallyann Speaks. My business page on Instagram is Global Speakers. Same for Facebook. I'm on Facebook as Sallyann Speaks. I'm on there as Sally Gray. And also I'm on LinkedIn as Sally Gray as well. And I have my website, SallyanGraySpeaks.com, which is actually undergoing a revision right now, because there's just so much stuff that has happened in the last year. So that is also being, updated, but you can find me through their email, info@SallyanGraySpeaks.com. And guys, listen, buy the books, and I pray that they help you. And most importantly, I want you to share with me the impact and how the tips have helped you and what you've been able to achieve. That is the greatest testimony to me. So I'm not selling books, I'm selling solutions for people that they can use and they can take with them and that they can use to improve the quality of their life. And if there has been no other time that action has been more important, Corona has shown us that nothing is definite in life and that we don't have time and that we are not in control of everything. And so the time is now to take that action right now. Do not waste another day, another minute. take
If
some
you've
action.
lost your job, it's a blessing. It's allowing you
A
to
blessing
recreate.
to recreate, reposition, pivot, and let's go.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to thank you, Sallyann, for coming on the show today and providing such incredible, unique stories and value. Everybody grab her 4 books, check out her on social media, support her. And like she says, if you read one of her books, put out a review stating how it helped you. What did you take action with and how did it change your life? These are brilliant things to do. And it allows someone like Sallyann to know that what they're doing is providing value. And if it's not, then she can adjust and tweak things and make sure that she can add that stuff into her next books or whatever she's doing. Like, as you can tell, she's now helping married people with their problems, because there's problems everywhere. And it's great to see that Sallyyann's jumping on there. Also follow us on the Robert Timmons Show every Thursday. We have amazing people like Sallyann on here, and we want to really thank Sallyann today for coming on all the way from Jamaica.
Yes, all the way from Kingston, Jamaica. Thank you, Robert, for having me. I appreciate it. I'm ever so humbled. And listen, I'm excited. Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. If you'd like more, click the videos right here. They're exactly what you need to see next. If you're new here, hit subscribe and become part of the community, and tell me what you think about the videos in the comments below. I read all of them every week. And join my Mind Power Mastery group by hitting the link in the description.